Hey guys, this week's video is dedicated in memory of Masha Bas Bat Sheva. You know, as a parent, your children, it's possible for them to act up sometimes. Sometimes. But they go about it in different ways. You know, sometimes it gets quiet in the house and you're like, what are they up to? And you go searching for them and you find them all together, doing something they're not supposed to, but they're doing it together. And then there are times where they're just not getting along with each other. And as a parent, you obviously rather the former than the latter, even though in both scenarios, they're doing something you don't want them to be doing and you want them to stop. When they're doing it together, when they're getting along with each other, that still brings joy to a parent. You know, in this week's Torah portion, we have two kind of negative stories. We have the Great Flood. This week is Parshat Noach, and we have the Great Flood where God saw the corruption in the world and said, this world is hopeless, I'm starting again. World 2.0. And you would think, what was this great corruption that the world was experiencing where God said the only solution is to start again? You would think it was the greatest sins, the most moral corruption you could imagine. But it actually says that what really did it, what was the straw that broke the camel's back, was petty theft. What I mean by petty theft was that people were stealing not because they needed something, not because they had any benefit from what they were taking, but just to hurt the other person. It was like they were stealing and then throwing it in the garbage. They had no use for it. They just wanted to hurt the other person. It was that type of fractured society where God said, this is hopeless. Where people are just, they despise each other and disrespect each other so much that it has no hope. And then at the end of the Torah portion, we have another story. We have the story of the Tower of Babylon, where the people gathered together to build a tower as a rebellion against God. And in that scenario, God disperses them. He doesn't destroy them. He disperses them across the lands. He changes their languages, breaks up the party. Is a rebellion against God not worse than petty theft? Why by petty theft did he? But as a parent, you do understand. Because even though in both scenarios, no, they weren't good. But in the second scenario, they were getting along. The people were united. God values when we respect each other, when we're pulling in the same direction. You might say, but it was negative. Yes, and God intervened. The same way when your kids are doing something wrong together, you don't let it go on. You intervene. But at least they were all getting along. God loves when we get along as Jews, as human beings. It's when we despise each other and we disrespect each other, God forbid, as a society, as a nation, where we're so fractured, that's something God can't handle. So in this week's portion, we have to take a special lesson in unity. Let's get along. Well, if this is for negative, how much more so for positive? Can you imagine if we're doing positive things together? If God appreciates the fact when we're pulling in a negative direction together, can you imagine how much joy he'd get and how much joy the world gets when we all pull in a positive direction together? Something to work on, to strive for. Let's begin now. Shabbat Shalom.